All right, why don't we go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another USA Technologies webinar. I want to start off by thanking you all for taking the time to join us today. I'm Adrian Austin, the Director of Partner and Product Marketing here at USAT, and today we're going to be discussing route scheduling and product merchandising, particularly how operators can better service their machines more efficiently while still running a lean operation. Now, before we get started, I want to provide some basic guidance of the webinar tool that we use today. So you'll notice on the right-hand side of your screen in the GoToWebinar pop-out, a few different drop-down menus. Now, one of those menus is the questions box. Here you can ask any questions that you have for our speakers as they're presenting today. And at the end of the session, we're going to take time to go through as many of those questions that we have time to run through and answer. We're going to be collecting the questions throughout the whole presentation, so don't feel like you have to wait until the end to start asking questions. Feel free to put them in as you go along, and we'll go through at the end and answer as many as we can. Additionally, if anybody is active on Twitter, please go ahead and feel free to use our hashtag USATwebinars to tag us in any of your tweets if you feel so inclined to do so. All right, so let's get the show on the road a little bit by starting off with a few introductions of our speakers. First up, we have a regular face for many of our webinars, which is Terry Hovis. So Terry is a NAMA certified executive and a 30-year veteran of the vending industry and an experienced seed cloud expert. Terry has mastered every level of vending business, from route driver to senior manager to pretty much every other role in between. Before joining Cantaloupe Systems, Terry actually managed a 250-person operation at Tampa Bay Vending. Terry has also been a route supervisor, an area manager, public relations, and customer retention manager, and a direct manager overseeing vending operations in 3 major metropolitan areas in Florida. A veteran of the United States Marine Corps, Terry also holds an AS degree in business from Coastal Carolina College. Terry, thanks a bunch for being here again with us.
Thank you.
All right, next up is our special guest presenter, Brian Rezac. Born and raised in Nebraska, Brian has lived in Lincoln for just about 25 years, with 21 of those years working at Lynn Pepco in the snack and beverage industry. So starting at the company as a salesman, Brian now works as a snack manager in charge of the vending side of their operations, where he manages scheduling routes, designing planograms, and running reports in Seed. On a personal side, Brian also enjoys drawing, traveling to new places, and spending time with his wife and 12-year-old daughter. Brian, thanks a bunch for being here with us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
I also wanted to give a quick introduction of Lynn Pepco, Brian's operation. So founded in 1984, Lynn Pepco has more than 35 years of soft drink and vending product distribution experience as a company. The company also has 5 soft drink franchises in the Midwest, a full-line vending company, a full-service coffee company, and a refrigeration division that specializes in equipment service and leasing. Specifically on the vending side, Lynn Pepco has approximately 1,100 locations across 14 different routes. So we'll be talking more about how they have used Seed and some of their scheduling and product merchandising experiences as we go through the presentation today. So a quick note about myself. As I said, I'm Adrian Austin. I joined the convenience services industry almost 3 years ago with a background in product management in the semiconductor industry. At USAT, I focused on bringing new features and products to launch, finding new partners USAT can work with, and most relevant to today, I organize our webinars and try to find some talented and experienced people to talk at them, which I think I did a pretty good job today because Terry and Brian are pretty knowledgeable guys when we were speaking earlier. Okay, I'm going to give a quick overview of what we're all going to be talking about during the presentation, and then I'll hand it over to Terry. So we're going to start off by talking about the balancing act that is scheduling, specifically the challenge of trying to make sure all of your machines are being scheduled in a timely manner, but also controlling operating costs. Then we're going to dive into some ways that we recommend operators handle these challenges of scheduling and how to set their scheduling best practices within their organization. Then we'll dive into merchandising and how your planogram can positively affect not only your revenue, but also how you can lower the cost that it takes to service your machines and your routes. Then we're going to touch on some more modern challenges, specifically around impacts operators are seeing from COVID-19 and how scheduling and merchandising strategies can help mitigate these impacts. After that, we're going to go through our key takeaways for the presentation and then open the floor up to Q&A. All right, that is enough from me. Terry, why don't I hand you the controls and you can take it away.
Okay, thanks, Adrian. First of all, I'd like to wish everybody well. I hope this webinar finds everybody well, and that you find this webinar informative. I will say it's an overview of what makes scheduling important, those components that go into it. I want everybody to understand that if you're looking for very specific training, I recommend that you make notes and kind of reach out to your CSM just sometime this week or next week. Okay, we start with the balancing act. That we consider dynamic scheduling sort of a balancing act, because the idea is we want to reduce service frequency, visits to machines, without compromising service levels. Finding the best solution to your business for scheduling. Adrian, I'm not getting any controls here. There we go. Finding the best scheduling solution for your business includes items such as.
Is it not moving along? If you try clicking through. Try clicking through now on your mouse.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, here we go. All right, I apologize for that. Customers don't want to see empty columns, obviously, and you can't sell what's not stocked. You're going to lose sales. That's pretty obvious. Operators want service machines as little as possible. Of course, it's going to reduce your cost. Each driver has a fixed number of hours that they can work in a day. And in a perfect world, we can maximize the number of machines per route and eliminate out of stocks both. And we get to throw this wonderful time that we're living in right now with new complications. So now we're concerned about what locations are open, when can we service them, how can we service them, all these different things are coming into play now. Sometimes we have to limit the amount of hours the drivers are spending, or actually limit the number of drivers that we have working right now. So we have to take all these things into consideration now. We need to find the best scheduling solution for your business. So if you're like me and you're currently missing baseball, I use a term wheelhouse, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for your wheelhouse. So we have two components here. First, our service, over-service. Over-servicing, yeah, it means you're going to have less out of stocks, but you're also going to have less fills per machine. You're going to have a whole lot more drivers hours. We could also say you'll probably have a lot more mileage and things of that nature. Under service, on the other hand, we're going to have less route costs. We're going to have more fills per visits, but we're also going to have more out of stocks, which is probably going to result in less revenue. So what we know, we have three quick findings from some data research that we've done, is that analysis of operator data shows 35 to 40% of machines could have been skipped per day. That's significant. The challenge is to make these changes to lower that percentage without, of course, affecting service levels. Our net effect would be higher fills per visit and potential route reduction because less machines need service on any given day. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, the step one is we identify with data. Start by identifying with data which machines need to be adjusted. Sellouts, for example, and this is machine specific, and we do have a little detail here. Beverages, we say closed front, some people call them stackers, but we don't want to see more than one sold out usually. A customer that likes that one single product, because we have a Pepsi guest, I'll say Pepsi sold out, they're going to get upset. Snack, that could be 3 to 5 columns. It depends on the size of the machine. Is it a 4 wide, 5 wide, 6 wide? And then glass fronts are a little bit trickier because we kind of have to look at what kind of variety we have used. The fills per machine is really important. Different machine types have different targets and different limits So that's really where we want to focus. And we do want to focus on units. If we're managing by units, then the dollars will obviously follow. If we try to manage by dollars, we're probably going to get in a lot of trouble there. You know, we have to consider some stops may be subsidized, so the dollar sales are going to be a lot lower. Some may be just a location where the price point's really a lot higher. Step 2 is to optimize the schedule. Seed uses 3 schedule types. The first we're going to look at is dynamic scheduling. This is clearly the best option for scheduling because it looks at the condition of the machine. It looks at the condition of the location and considers sub-route rules, which is something really important when you're scheduling to keep in mind. It can be adjusted to be either more aggressive or it can even be more conservative. It's clearly the best method for scheduling. It uses, you know, obvious 3 different triggers: max sales, max days, or depletion. Now, to be honest with you, you know, ideally depletions are going to be what drives you to the machines. Our next piece is static scheduling. Okay, this is the old school method. This is an older method of scheduling with set days. Funny thing about it, it rarely gets adjusted after initial setup, at least in my experience. It's less efficient because it typically meets the driver's schedule versus the need of the machine. We still use it in combination with dynamic scheduling. I'll get to that in a moment. But as I was saying, if a lot of times, at least in my experience, when I was used to run an operation, when we get a new account, we'd look at the route that it's going to go on based on the area. And maybe we say, oh, he's got time Tuesday and Friday. And we put it on those days, and it pretty much stays there for eternity. So this dynamic scheduling gets us away from that. It's still used in dynamic scheduling, but there's certain times where even with dynamic scheduling, you still need to set up a static schedule. My example would be, I know in my experience, I see people that maybe we receive fresh food on certain days of the week, and we want to get that food into the machine the very next day, so we get the maximum amount of time, you know, based on shelf life. Brian, you know, while we have you on here, maybe you can touch on this. Have you seen reasons that you guys would use static scheduling?
Yeah, we use static scheduling almost every time when we start up a new route. We keep our current schedule that we had before seed, and we develop a history of sales from the static schedule. And then I also have a couple accounts that they're only there in the afternoons, and then we have an agreement with them to be there, like for instance, on a Friday morning. So we just have that particular account and stops automatically schedule every Friday, even if the rest of the route is on a dynamic schedule. So those are the 2 instances we use it mainly.
Okay, very good. Appreciate it. Thank you. Another method we use alongside dynamic scheduling is something we call interval scheduling. It's not real accurate, but I kind of call it a hybrid of dynamic and static. It's a type of static schedule, but it has flexibility. This allows you to avoid special trips for low volume machines and service while servicing dynamic machines. It's obviously ideal for, you know, low volume coffee machines, changers, maybe some food machines on a much smaller scale, of course. So the example that we have here is if we want to service a coffee machine once a week, it makes sense to set it for every 7 days with maybe 3 days flexibility. And what that means is that maybe when a snack or a soda or maybe both get called in, anytime within 4 to 10 days, while servicing one of those or both of those, you'll also get called in for the coffee machine. So while it's not perfect, it's a whole lot better than static. This is a good opportunity to throw in a new feature that some of you might not be aware of. Easier scheduling now includes maps. So, you know, especially right now, again, you know, we want to touch on some of these COVID specific, you know, functionality items. This is really good if you're combining routes, especially. You know, while you're using this easier schedule at the edit piece, while editing the schedule, there's a maps tab just above where you see the number of machines scheduled. If you click on that, it'll give you a map that'll give you these little bubbles where all the machines are located. So like in this example, you see 2's way down there, and you know, you may decide, you know, let's hold off on that for a day. So yeah, it's a really good tool, especially right now when you're combining machines from other routes. Okay. Next thing we want to talk about is merchandising. Merchandising, to me, is probably the most important part. As somebody who's implemented hundreds of seed platforms to customers, one of the things that I try to impress is that, yeah, all these settings are really conservative. You know, 1 sold out on a soda machine, maybe 3 on a snack. Where you're really going to pick up your gains is merchandising machines properly. And it's important because I look at each coil like it's real estate, okay? If I have real estate and I'm basically putting product and I want to return for my money, okay? So things to avoid are set it and forget it merchandising. We have to know that people's preferences are going to change, especially with weather. You know, they may drink colas in the winter time and shift to more of a clear or fruity beverage in the summertime, things like that. I think it's a good idea to review once a quarter. Drivers being the only merchandisers. I do think drivers have an important role in merchandising. I think drivers can hear from customers and come back and let us know. But I think there's also a good chance if we're relying on drivers that they're forgetting it by the time they get back, things like that, or a lot of times it's just product that they like. People would suggest including them, even have reviews with your drivers. And a real big thing, don't revert to changes too quickly. You know, you want to give, like, if you introduce a new product, you want to give it a chance to sell. I recommend at least 30 to 60 days to make sure that product's going to be accepted or not accepted. Okay. Like I said, merchandising, I look at it as real estate. It's, you know, if you're familiar with how grocery stores work, a lot of times they rent shelf space to, you know, like Frito-Lay and other providers. They're certainly not going to put product up on that shelf that's not going to sell because they're paying for that space. And you're doing the same with your machine. Top sellers need to be in the highest capacity column in a beverage machine. I think, you know, we've all seen it where we set up a beverage machine. It's got a double column, but the product that we put in the double column just isn't selling very well. And something maybe that we're putting in a single row in the middle is selling lights out. It's a good idea to put those, you know, go in and re-merchandise that machine and bring them in. It's okay to double, sometimes triple up popular items in beverage and snacks. I say more so in snack machines. You know, if somebody at the location is eating a whole column of peanut M&Ms every 2 days, then it's okay to put in a couple more. It's better than leaving an item in there that just hasn't sold or isn't selling anything. I think it's a good idea to include your top sellers in every machine, at least to begin with. You know, you can go back if it's not selling, by all means, take it out. And shorter shelf life items probably don't need to be in very many machines. You know what machines, you know, you can put short shelf life items in and they'll be okay. You certainly don't want to put that in a low to mid-level volume machine. Okay, we said we'd get to the modern challenges. I think what that means is, yeah, we have a problem right now. How are we handling the COVID-19 related issues? Well, you know, the good news is what we did as a CSM team, we sat down and we talked about, you know, if we were you, what would we do? What kind of things would we need? So hopefully we provided those tools for you, and we'll talk a little bit about that now. First of all, you want to make sure that you close locations that are closed so that they're not getting in your way and you don't accidentally schedule something. You could do this through import now. It's a machine import. It's located, at under customers for machine import. You have, I think it's 4 different options for exception periods, but you can import that in now, which is really nice. You also want to adjust PARs accordingly. Obviously, if a location is, reduced population, half population, the PAR should reflect that. And this is another item that we've created a tool now where you can export the planogram and you can actually adjust the PARs and import it back in. You want to consider longer shelf life items until locations come back to a level that supports product sales. I think the one positive right now is I think our customers probably understand what we're going through and would understand if maybe our selections aren't as good as they were in the past. And of course, use flex scheduling to combine routes so that you have as much of a full route day as you can put together with multiple routes. I think that's really helpful. Okay. So as introduced earlier, Brian is our guest today. Lynn Pepco is still fairly new to seed and actively deploying, but I think Brian can share with us some of his experiences, maybe some results. I know they are doing some dynamic scheduling. Brian, would you like to share that?
Yeah, no problem. Like you said, I still consider myself fairly new to seed. Lynn Pepco and we just adopted our first route went out in seed approximately a year ago. And just recently we switched a couple of our last route switched over about 2 weeks ago. So we're still fairly new, but right away we started seeing the real-time sales, and that helped us with change in PARs and planograms right off the bat. Super easy to read the reports, and overall we're just becoming more efficient all the time and using less fuel. The current conditions have been challenging, but this has really helped to lower our PARs and determine where the need really is, and making adjustments from there. But some of the biggest changes that we've made as a company so far with having seed is we were able to eliminate 2 routes with the transition, and then some of our hours are down on a couple of our routes too. So that's been really good to see. The university, we have the University of Nebraska here, so we fully pre-kit all their snacks and micro market now, and we were able to split one of those university routes that we had previously. It had 64 machines on it, and we were able to split those between 2 other existing routes. So that was really good. So about half of our routes are pre-kitted now, and the COVID has kind of set us back on moving forward with that. So we've left a couple of them on static schedule and trying to develop some history, but it's tough to get history when the account is not even letting, there's a couple that we can't even get in. So we'll have to wait on that. But overall, it's been a great positive experience. And I guess lastly, I'd just like to shout out that our IT support has been really good too. Max has been who we've been dealing with, and he has been great to answer all kinds of questions for us too. So it's been really good.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Okay, so we have some takeaways for today, things to remember about scheduling and merchandising. First of all, the obvious, the goal for the scheduler is to reduce services without affecting the service level. We don't want to schedule to fill route days for drivers. That's not our goal. We actually want to schedule to complete the needed services. And merchandising is seasonal. Avoid the set and forget way of operating, way of thinking. And I believe that leads to our question and answer session. Before we do that, I want to, because I probably won't get an opportunity, I want to thank everybody for joining. And I also want to wish everybody the best in recovering. I hope the recovery is consistent and lasts a long time. Thanks again.
Great. Thanks a bunch, Terry and Brian, both guys, for going through and giving us some awesome insight. So we're going to be getting started with the Q&A session shortly. So if you guys haven't put any questions yet, again, on the questions box to the right in the GoToWebinar section, you'll see that drop down. If you drop it down, you'll see a place where you can ask your questions there. So looking through the questions that we have coming in, the first one we have is on the maps feature. When will the new feature to move to next schedule be released? Terry, I think that one's for you.
We already have a feature move to next schedule, but there is a component to that that's new. As it's actually really neat. So those of you who have used this before and moved the machine to the next schedule, when you're scheduling the next day, you can't tell that you moved this machine over. And I've heard this a few times now. So we actually have this new feature that when you move a machine to the next schedule, while creating the schedule the next day or the next scheduled day, you'll see a little icon over the machine that looks like a truck. And if you cover it with your mouse, it'll give you more information. It'll tell you this was, moved from yesterday or maybe the day before or Friday or something like that. We do expect that to come out in either the next release or the following one. My expectation is that we'll see it by the end of July.
Got it. Thanks, Terry. So next question. We are getting ready to start seed and deciding who should be the scheduler. Do you have any recommendations on who in the organizations would be the right fit?
Yes, definitely. It's not just a simple, it's this position, but the things to think about are, number one, this person's going to have a lot of control over the business. This person should have authority over product, what product we're carrying, to at least to a certain degree, input on that, because they are, there's a good chance that they'll be merchandising. A lot of people will tell you that it's helpful that they're familiar with the vending locations, so that how difficult they are to service, those types of things, because those kind of come into scheduling to a certain degree. And I definitely don't disagree with that. Those are all really good. But mostly I think what you're looking for is somebody, probably on the supervisory level or above, and you want to make sure they're not people that can be influenced by drivers, because drivers will often try to dictate where they go and what days.
Got it. All right, next question. Is it possible to set a static and dynamic schedule for machines to be used at the same time?
A single machine, I think, is probably what you're talking about. A single machine can only be set, have one schedule setting. So it could either be dynamic or static or interval. In that case, I would, it sounds like you have a specific issue or concern. I think it'd be a good idea to talk it through with your CSM or a couple CSMs. It sounds like maybe an interval might be a better option there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, Terry. Is this something that where we could say, hey, if it gets to 4 days and no one has been scheduled yet, then schedule it on the 4th day. Otherwise, go off these other triggers of machines being near it or hitting a certain sales value.
Right.
Got it. All right, next question, Terry. Any advice on how to make cold food machines dynamic with regards to spoilage dates?
Yeah, food machines are difficult, especially the carousel type. Now, the snack type, the glass fronts, those aren't so difficult. I think the bigger challenges with food machines is that we're always going to have spoilage, and we really can't account for that. Some of the things we can do, and this takes some consultation and talking through it. But you could certainly, bump up your pars a little bit, pars and capacity a little bit above what the machine actually holds so that you can bring more with each pre-kit than you really expect to bring. That sort of thing helps. You could still dynamically schedule, but you have to think about the shelf life. So if my sandwich is I got sandwiches going out in 7 days, then when on my max days, we're going to have to put 7 days there. And the driver's going to have to kind of be more aware. So if he's getting there on day 5 and he's got sandwiches going out in 2 days, he needs to remove those as well.
Got it. So Brian, question for you. So at Lynn Pepco, who controls merchandising and what goes into the decisions on what you're merchandising in your machines?
Well, a lot of them we have it on. I do the scheduling currently, and we just base it on the determining factors. Like I said, some of the newer routes we have them on static. We've had a schedule in place for a while before that, so we kind of mimic that. Look at what our fills are, what the depletion levels are on some of that, and we have adjusted it from there. It's certainly a lot easier to schedule using the dynamic scheduling, though. Having the alerts, it tells you right there on the screen how many out of stocks you have. You can, with an easy click, tell how much money the machine has brought in. It tells you how many days it's been since you've been there. It's just so much easier with dynamic.
If I could add to that, one of the things that I kind of teach is that I think it's real for a scheduler, merchandising is kind of a natural flow. And what I mean by that is, when you cover a machine with your mouse so that you can see the current condition, it's telling you how much money, how many items have sold, but it's also telling you the condition. So if you're looking at a machine, a snack machine, for example, it's got 3 sold outs, but it only has $40 in it, then that's a good machine. It's a good candidate for merchandising. And a lot of times when we open up these machines and take a deep dive, what we find is 25% of the machine hasn't sold anything in the last month. And really what's been driving us there for, the last few months is a handful of products. So maybe some of that's doubling up on things, maybe some of that's introducing whole new products. But certainly, the scheduler should be able to identify those machines that need merchandising the most. And when it comes to, maybe setting a bar for how many fills is minimum, I think what people will typically see is that there's somewhere between 75 and 80 fills on a snack, or 85 fills on a snack at first. We want to try to get that pushed up to 100. And I think, depending on the type of beverage and things like that, they'll usually be a little bit more than that. But, you should always raise that bar and try to push it and use your merchandising as a method for doing so.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it actually ties to another question directed at Brian also that just came in. So Brian, about how many assets on your routes are you servicing per day on average?
We try to keep them in the mid-20s, low to mid-20s. Of course, driving out of town and stuff like that will make a big difference. But I'd say typically we do have a spreadsheet that we kind of keep track of the stops per day per route. So we're usually around 22 to 25. And the amount of machines that each route has available to service kind of varies too on just how busy the accounts are, but I range from anywhere to 63 to 209 on a route. But typically each day, I'd say 24 would be a good barometer there.
Got it. So another question, I think this might be for you, Terry. So in an effort to avoid changing the par level at each machine, can we add an exception period to assure that we don't overpick a machine?
Well, the exception periods are kind of limited. There's really the idea of exception periods is set for mainly for forecasted locations. So The first option is we can close that location. If we close that location, what that does is it excludes it from scheduling so that it, for one, it doesn't get in your way. But also, if it happens to be a machine that is set to forecast, for that period that it's closed, we're not going to use that time where it's not selling anything and calculate that in with the forecasted amounts. The other options are all around forecasting. Some of them are a reduction in the amount we're forecasting, and some are an increase in the amount we're forecasting. And that's specific to forecast machines. So unfortunately, there's not a way to say, yeah, let's do this half full right now. We don't have an exception period for that. Had we probably experienced, where we're at today, we might. It certainly certainly makes sense now, unfortunately.
And so it kind of comes back to another question somebody asked. So when we're talking about marking locations closed, how do you do that specifically, mark a location closed? And is there a report you can run to identify closed machines so that people can remember to open them back up?
Well, first of all, it's done through, if I'm doing one location at a time, yes. It's what you do is you click on the location, the actual location, and you'll see a few bars going across. I think the last one near the top says location exception. Yeah, location exceptions. And you click on that, just follow the instructions down. It's pretty simple. You can add as many exception periods to a machine as you want. If you have, say, 6 machines at a location and say you've closed that location or you've done some other exception to it, but you have one machine that we're still servicing or something, if you look at the dynamic schedule setting, there's actually a little checkbox that says exclude exception periods. And if you do that, if you check that, that machine won't be included in there. As far as identifying which machines have exception periods, we do, it's an export. It will export to Excel. The instructions on it would be to go to your setup tab, customers, then you'll see a list of boxes near the top. The furthest one, I believe, to the right is import export machines. You might say assets. We're always changing terminology. Click on that, and then down at the bottom, you would download that importable data, and basically that'll give you all of your machines, and it'll list what type of exception you have for each location.
Great. All right, next question. Is there a way to check location addresses to make sure that they are showing up correctly on the map?
Well, I think the previous maps that we used, it would not register, and you'd have to kind of look at Google and verify it with Google. But if you do get one that you can't confirm, that would be the way I'd recommend is try it on Google.
Another specific C related question. So we are scheduling locations that are serviced by 2 different branches. Is there an easy way to schedule between 2 different branches?
No, we currently do not support 2 different branch as far as flex scheduling, like combining routes or anything like that. You actually have to schedule each independently. But we are having discussions about that now. This is a brand new subject that just came up like within the last 10 days.
Got it. So next question. So when creating schedules, is there a way to view the items sold/sold out? Can you explain the quick picks a little bit?
Well, when you're creating schedules, what you'll do when you cover the machine with your mouse, you'll see a box that will tell you basically the condition of the machine for the next few of the product for the next few days. Now it'll be limited to those products that are in danger of selling out over the next few days. It's not going to show you everything. So that gives you the condition. Of course, towards the bottom, it shows you what the dollar sales would be expected, and also what the VINs would be expected by day. And it goes out, over the course of, I think, 5 days.
Got it. So is there like a report that can show you the solds out in advance to review when you're scheduling?
There's, I believe you went to the sales alerts, you can see that information.
Another question, this time on Merchandising Wizard. So can the Merchandising Wizard's page be open to make planogram changes in that page?
Yes, you can make changes directly from Merchandising Wizard. You have an option with the green arrow and a red arrow. The green arrow accepts the change that's been recommended. You can also make your own changes. The items that we recommend that you remove will be in bold, so you can actually, pick where those items should go.
And Brian, I know in our other conversations, you said that you specifically are using Merchandising Wizards as well. Do you want to talk about a little bit on your experiences? Have you used it and what you like about it and how it's benefiting you guys?
Yeah, it's just super easy to click on the Merchandising Wizard and just get some history. You can change it from 5 visits, 10 visits, 25 visits, just to get some history on the last times you've been to the machine and what's been selling, what hasn't. It used to be I'd have to run a report and find out the sales for a given date range. Now really just a click of the mouse and I can see all that history right there, and gives you suggestions. And even if it doesn't give you, even if you don't want to do the suggestions, it'll show you how many coil turns you've had in that period of time, and you can just make a logical decision based on that.
Got it. And Terry, I know we presented earlier that people want to avoid the set and forget mentality of merchandising, but it's also something that people aren't going in every day and fussing with the planograms on the machine. Do you have recommendations on what kind of cadence it's advised to set within an organization of when to go through and start reviewing planograms?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to merchandise, and I think the biggest thing is just do it. Kind of like what Nike says. The thing of it is that if you go through and I do it orderly. If I started with Route 1 and went through Route 10 and completed it, what do I do next? Well, I start back at Route 1. That's the cadence I would use, and I just don't think merchandising ever ends. I just think it's a continuous process, and so you should treat it as such. But I think you really need to be organized to the point where at least which routes you did and when you did them, so that you could start back at the beginning.
Got it. And actually, this kind of ties into the next question. So when you're changing out products to try to get better sales, does Seed show you what you've tried in the past and try not to repeat products you've tried out that didn't do too well?
Yeah, you can actually run reports that can give you this information, sales reports. The Merchandising Wizard isn't necessarily going to show you that, and because when you change out a product, it's kind of we're looking forward instead of backwards. But there are sales reports, and certainly if you haven't used Spotlight reports, you can get really detailed in Spotlight reports. I definitely recommend giving that a shot.
Got it. So kind of looking towards some of these modern challenges, this question is around that. So if an account is open and using the machine, but will not allow access to service the vending machines at this time, will a closed exception period affect the forecasting/prepicks once we can resume service?
Actually, by closing it, you're actually helping it, because if it's a location that needs forecasting, we're expecting a certain amount of volume each day. So you can think the same thing without thinking about COVID. Just think about schools. Yeah, my machines are in the school, and there's probably somebody that's buying a candy bar and a bag of chips once in a while. But when school starts up, if I include those dates, the last, say, 8 weeks, in with my current forecasting, it's not going to send enough product. So by closing the location, what we're doing is we're saying those last 8 weeks, it's as if they didn't even exist. So we go back to prior to that, and the forecasting looks at those sales.
Got it. So I actually have a question on my side that's kind of more directed towards Brian. So Brian, as you're moving more schedules over from static to dynamic, on average, do you think that you're scheduling those locations more or less frequently than you were before?
Oh, definitely less. When I have the dynamic schedule in place, I create sub routes, and I really look at the region or the area of town they're going to. And if one machine is borderline and there's not a lot in that other in that particular sub route, I'll push it another day or two, as long as I don't have out of stocks or anything like that. So being on a dynamic or a static schedule, he would have went to that location, and I'm able to push it a couple more days and just make everybody the time more worth it.
Got it. So I know, and sometimes when we've talked about scheduling and making that switch in the past, people sometimes have to have conversations with their customers to say, hey, we're not going to be there as frequently, but trust me, the service is going to be getting better. Is that any conversations that you're having right now with your customers, or with, given the state of the world, having fewer people from outside their organization being inside their building might be seen as a positive? So I'm not sure if you have any experiences on either of those two reactions.
We did. There were a couple of accounts that I was up front with them and said, hey, we are switching to another software, and it's going to be based on need. And they were totally fine with that. Our sales are up. Their machines are just as full, but it's not a Monday, Wednesday, Friday stop anymore. Sometimes it's once a week. Sometimes it's Monday, Friday. Sometimes it's just on Wednesday. But the machines look good, so that's the main thing.
Cool.
But I was up front with them, from the get-go.
Got it. Good to hear. All right, I think that's a great place to end it. So Brian and Terry, thanks again for being on this presentation and sharing all your guys' insight. I know I actually learned a few things also, and hopefully people on the call did as well. If anybody would like to get in touch or contact us, leaving our information on the page there. Also, if you have a message you want to shoot it out to sales@usatech.com directly for Terry or Brian, I'll make sure it's routed in the right way. Other than that, Terry or Brian, any other closing words you guys wanted to say before we sign off?
I would just like to say thanks again for attending. And again, if you have any questions, any really details that you want to follow up, CSM team is available. They can be reached. It's not up here. You could reach through sales at USA Tech, but if you've never emailed the CSM team, it's csmteam@usatech.com. Pretty easy to remember. I wish everybody the best of luck getting through all this mess.
Yeah, and the only thing I have closing is, if anybody has questions or anything, just contact Adrian, and I'd be glad to shoot him an email back. So thanks for everything.
Awesome. All right. Well, again, thanks for everyone for being on. And until next time, have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk with you all soon. Bye-bye.